Alright, in this tutorial we're going to be doing motion blur and adding motion blur to photos using Photoshop. So this is an example of a finished one. We're going to be doing the same thing to another image right here. So the first step is, after opening your image, is you're going to duplicate the layer. You can duplicate the layer by Command J, and then you'll have 2 copies of the same image. Once you have 2 copies of the same image, we're going to be using the healing tool, spot healing tool, to get rid of our person. That way when we create our motion blur, the person won't be in there, it'll just be the background. We'll create a layer mask to bring our subject through in just a little bit. But to use the spot healing brush, just click on it. You just start painting over the subject or the part of the image that you want to remove. And what Photoshop's going to do is it's going to try and figure out what would be behind the person based on the surroundings, and it's going to place what it thinks it needs to right there. So you just have to be a little patient with this tool. Kind of keep going over little areas. Eventually it'll all start to go away. Don't worry about getting it perfect. We are going to be making the background blurry in just a little bit, so if little things are out of the way or if it's a little blurry, it's all going to be okay for this project. Alright, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to fix this line up here. I'm going to use my clone stamp tool to just kind of bring that back so there isn't a big gap in the hole. So to use the clone stamp tool, click on the stamp. I'm going to just lower my size a little bit. When you hold down Alt, it's going to copy, and then you just kind of click to paste. You just got to kind of do it every now and then. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect. This tool, you can still kind of see where the runner was, but because we're going to make it all blurry anyway, that won't be too noticeable in just a second. So the next step, I want you guys to make a smart object with your layer. That way when we add a motion blur to it, we can always go back and edit that or fix it if we need to. To do that, right click or control click on the layer and convert to smart object. Once we've done that, we can start creating our motion blur. To create the motion blur, go to Filter, Blur, and then Motion Blur. And what Motion Blur is going to do, since this character is just running back and forth, it's just going to create the angle of back and forth. You can kind of change the angle in either way you would like. So if there was a person running into the distance here, we could alter this to go vertically. Since we were running horizontally, we're just going to go to 0. And I'm going to turn the distance up with this, which will alter my blur. That one looks pretty good. All right, then the next step, we've done this step before. We've done this with recent projects. What you're going to do is you're going to create a layer mask. To create a layer mask, you just go down to the piece of paper with the hole in it and click on your layer mask. So our next step is we're going to start painting our runner from the image through. So turn down your opacity so we can see where she was. You're going to get your paintbrush, make sure your color is on black and you're clicked on the layer mask. And then you can just go back through, carefully painting, trying not to get where the motion blur will be, but just carefully painting little pieces until it's best to do this in little steps, so don't try and do it all in one brush stroke. Unclick every now and then so that if you do mess up, you can just go back one step instead of having to repeat everything. Also, if you mess up, you can come down here to the color palette. You can change your color to white, and white will just do the opposite. So wherever you've painted, you can bring back. And if you go to black, it'll paint it. When you guys are doing this, it's also best to use a soft brush. To change your brushes, you just go up here, find a soft brush, usually in the general soft round, and then you can change it to whatever size you need. All right, now that we've got that all done, we'll turn our opacity back so we can get the motion blur. And then if there's any little areas that you notice you missed, just switch over to the white paint and you can just clean it up. Alright, then when you guys are done, make sure you save and submit to Google Classroom.